Today I'm going to cover one of the most controversial and emotional divided topics in modern society, gun control laws, particularly focused in the United States. Now, before people instantly choose sides, this episode is not about attacking responsible gun owners, removing freedoms or ignoring constitutional rights. It's about asking one simple question: can a country protect both freedom and human life at the same time? Because when mass shootings become normal headlines, when children, families and innocent people continue dying, eventually society has to ask whether improvements can be made without completely stripping away rights. What if the answer isn't total bans but smarter balance? In many countries like the UK, firearm ownership still exists under strict controls. Farmers, sport shooters and licensed individuals can still legally own weapons under regulated systems. So today we explore whether parts of those systems could realistically help reduce tragedies in America without destroying the identity or freedoms many Americans deeply value. At what point does the right to bear arms conflict with the right for innocent people to feel safe? This is not about left versus right. This is not about demonising gun owners. And this is not about pretending criminals will magically disappear. This is about rational discussion, ethical responsibility, and whether modern society can evolve laws without abandoning freedom entirely. So today, let's have the conversation many people avoid.
What if everything you think you know about reality is wrong? What if the glitches, the mysteries, and the unanswered questions are clues from conspiracies and the paranormal to science, consciousness, and the possibility we're living in a simulation? This is the One Opinion in 8 billion podcasts. Every week, we dive into the biggest mysteries of our world. Subscribe now and be a part of the discussion. Question everything. Nothing is off limits.
Hi everyone, welcome to the next episode of One Opinion in 8 billion. As you've probably already gathered, today I'm going to be talking about gun control laws. It is mainly focused on the United States because as a British citizen, we see a lot of stuff from around the world, and I feel that the biggest issue when it comes to gun control laws, especially in sort of civilized societies, is America has a massive problem. Now, there's a lot of the gun control laws that I agree with, and there's lots that I disagree with. So basically, getting out all of the legal side of it. So the Second Amendment was adopted to the US Constitution as part of the United States Bill of Rights in 1791, I think. Let me just double check that. I'm sure it was 1791. Yeah, 1791. And basically, what that says is, well, the actual wording is, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So that's basically saying that you have got the right to protect what's yours, protect your property, protect those that you love within, your home, obviously outside of the public street, which would be law enforcement. And to be honest with you, I am all for it. If I had my way and I had the choice, I would say that was and should be the right for anyone in any country. Obviously, as long as law permits. So the problem, I think, with this amendment in America isn't the right to be able to hold and carry arms and defend what's yours. I think it's the limitation of what weapons you're allowed to be able to do that. So in the UK, it's very rare that you can get a firearm certificate. It's even more strict now than it was. Well, it's got stricter over the years, but 20 years ago, it was nothing like it is today. Now it's one of the most toughest legislations to adopt the rights to have a firearms license. It would normally be people like farmers with a lot of land to shoot on and whatnot. Those that do it for a sport or something like that. but the stringency laws behind it are immense. Not only that, but shotgun license is very different. It's still very strict, but there is a slightly different legal regime to meet for a shotgun license and that of a full firearms, which is obviously bullets. So I think that in America they could, what I'm basically sick of seeing, which I'm sure a lot of people are sick of seeing, and the people, even Americans, that are against guns, I think the biggest problem is when we see children or teenagers that maybe are suffering with mental health issues, have maybe been brainwashed by something they've seen online or from another way, and they've become deluded and they basically have access to firearms, whether they're in a safe or something like that. You know, a lot of American citizens will probably have their guns locked up somehow or some fashion. But kids will either work out the code or know where the key is, something along those lines. And what happens is that these troubled people then go and cause mass murder, mass shootings. And I think it's the ability that they have access to be able to do that. That's the biggest problem. So for me, I think that there's a way of still keeping the Second Amendment intact, but using a lot of British laws and other laws from other states and other countries amalgamated into it, which will make it a lot safer and a lot more secure. For instance, as a personal resident, being obviously in America, I believe that you should be able to, yes, have a firearm in the house to protect yourself and those that you love and your property. But I think it should be specific to caliber. So I would argue probably a 9mm or less is suffice to be able to defend your home. Furthermore, possibly a 45, but I don't see why you would need more than a 9mm just to defend your home until the proper law authorities arrive, if you've been able to ring them. At close quarters, a 9mm weapon is going to do just the same damage as any other. I also think it should be limited to how many. So I think that you should only be able to have one per household. I don't see the necessity of having 3 or 4 different types of weapon in the house. This is just for protection that I'm talking about at the moment. We'll get onto the sport and side of it in a moment. But to protect you, your family and your house, I don't think you need anything more than a 9mm. One of them. And I think you should also be limited to the amount of ammunition that you have in the household. So, I mean, you can go and do your own research and statistics. When I did my bodyguard training, it was basically depicted to us on our firearms, small firearms training, that when it comes to close quarter battles, it's normally up to 3 bullets, 3 seconds, and within 3, I think it was either 3 or 3 meters. And that's what I was taught by the ASAA that taught my training in Geneva, Switzerland. So if a lot of 9mm magazines can hold up to about 7 to 9, sometimes more in a magazine. So let's just say it's 9. That's 18 bullets if you have 2 magazines, which I think is probably pretty fair. You know, I don't think you'd need more than 2 magazines. I think if you need more than 2 magazines, you're going to be in trouble regardless. So let's say, worst case scenario, you had a gang attack, maybe 3, 4, 5 people. So if that's 3 bullets per one of those, I mean, that's 15 bullets, potentially. So I think two clips is enough. 90% of the time you're going to have access, because even if your internal phone lines, which are minimal now, but even if they're more in America, we've all got mobiles now. You can even contact via the internet, I think, in many cases. But there's going to be means for you to be able to call the emergency services whilst the intruders are causing entry into the house. But if you can't do it with two clips, two magazines in a 9mm firearm, you're probably not going to do it anyway. So, you know, it should be just enough to be able to either defend an immediate aggressor or to subdue them enough with suppressed fire until law enforcement arrive. And in America, I would imagine that if you're saying that there's an intruder in the house, I would imagine the response time is pretty good. So, you know, in comparison to the UK, I think the biggest thing why we have less gun crime is because we have less accessibility to weapons in the UK. So, like, we don't have, our police force don't have them. We have a special, pretty much similar to American SWAT team. We have a armed response units that we call in. We do have them sometimes on the streets, and we do have them at large events and at airports, things like that. But we don't generally, it's very rare for you to see an armed officer in the UK, especially outside of an event or, you know, a big do or something like that. So we have to call those in. So obviously that takes time, the same as calling in SWAT team. But regular police officers, the best that they have, and a lot of them have them these days, which I completely agree, they should have access to them, being used appropriately. They have tasers, which are classed as a firearm, because it can kill you. You know, if you're someone with known or unknown heart disorders, maybe respiratory issues or anything like that, if you get shot by a taser, you know, it could instantly kill you. You know, it's 50,000 volts of electricity being passed through you, and if you've ever had an electric shock, you know, that being zapped through you, you know, for I don't know, whether it's 5-10 seconds, whatever, you know, it's gonna hurt. So I think they're a great new addition to the British police force, that more and more officers seem to be armed with a taser. And I think it's a step in the right direction, because personally I think that they should be armed. If you are putting your life on the risk, if you are putting your life at risk and somebody is shooting at you, you should have the ability to be able to return fire. I think when we see a lot of these cop shows and stuff like that, any form of aggression, more often than not, you see them pull their firearm out, and that's pretty much the end of it. And that's all great said and done, but then that's where accidents can happen. And, you know, if somebody goes to grab for something, I mean, it's a catch-22, and it's the lesser of two evils, and you have to kind of battle that morality yourself. But for me, I think that having a sidearm on you, again, I mean, having a sidearm and being able to return fire instantly should be the automatic norm. But again, in flip side to that, Americans, law enforcement are now getting a lot more tasers as well. And they often draw those now instead of the firearm, which I think is the better course of action. But if you have got an immediate threat of danger to your life and or somebody else's, you should be able to respond with deadly force, if need be. So I am a strong, you know, I do battle with this, because if our police officers are all armed, that means that there's going to be naturally more weapons coming into the UK one way or another, which could be stolen, you know, robbed, call it what you will. There'll be more available weapons on the black markets and, you know, behind closed doors, etc. So I do understand that is a risk, but I feel that, again, weighing up the two greater evils, I believe that any police officer, the good ones, that are putting their life at risk to make sure that the rest of society is safe, should be able to return fire if they are presented with a gun, a knife, an immediate threat that can cause the end of yours and somebody else's life. You then have the ability to be able to cease that, stop that, if need be, there and then. Not have to cower and wait for an armed response unit. So I do understand the risks, but I mean, Northern Ireland, even though they're separate to us island-wise, but they have the right to bear arms, the police officers. And I don't see why we shouldn't have that in the mainland UK. This is where I think it gets a little bit grey, and the same in the United States, where there's slightly different laws per state. In the UK, there's slightly different laws between England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Maybe not as drastic as in America between state lines, but it sends a bit of a mixed message. I do battle with this. I think, if you are one nation, you should have the same laws. I don't get, especially when it comes to crucial things. Like a big one in the moment in America, obviously cannabis has been legalised in many states across America, or has already been, but not all. It's difficult enough going from one country to another and learning the etiquettes and the rules and the regulations. I've heard of some horror stories where people have gone to like Dubai or an Arab state, and just kissing your girlfriend that you're not married to can lead you in a lot of trouble, down to their religious laws, or the influence of religious views and traditions or whatever into their domestic laws, which is another issue which I do talk about in my book, and I probably will do a podcast at some point. The input that religious values, morals, or traditions, whatever, the impacts that they have on public law. I'll have to find out the particular definition of those two wordings. But the fact of the matter is that I believe that the UK the police should have access to firearms. Again, standard 9mm Glocks, which is probably the most commonly worldwide law enforcement weapon. I am trained myself in the Glock. It's a brilliant weapon, and in the UK particularly, it's being rolled out in the military. If it hasn't already been completed, it probably soon will be. But the great thing for soldiers in the UK is that, again, being that I've trained on some of the military weapons, assault rifles, the three problems that can go wrong with the magazine during a live fire is the exact same ways to fix them, on the same problems that can occur with the Glock. Which is you've either run out of ammo, there's a blockage in the chamber, or blockage in the magazine, and you're trained for years and years and years to instantly sort these issues during a live fire situation with the current standard issue assault rifles in the British Armed Forces. So now having the Glocks, having the exact same problem, it's a really easy rollout. And for the soldiers, obviously, the training that they've had with their assault rifles, the sidearms that they now carry, are the exact same ways to fix the weapon if it malfunctions in any of those three. So that's really good. And the Glock is a great weapon. It's lightweight, Austrian weapon. It's got very, very little recoil. It's very accurate. And it is just a beautiful weapon. If you can say a weapon's beautiful. But as weapons go, I've fired a lot, both of high caliber weapons, assault rifles, snipers, shotguns, and small firearms such as revolvers and smaller 9mm. And it's definitely, I think most people would agree that use firearms more often than I've used them, would agree that the Glock is a beautiful weapon when it comes to the need to use. So going back to the point I was making, or going back on more on topic, you know what I'm like. So I think if America introduced a few of these little things from the UK laws, plus those around the world, so minimise to 9mm weapons or below, maximum up to a 45 caliber. I don't see why you'd need more power than that. A maximum of 2 magazines per personal residence. Now the security of it, I know that, we see in films and stuff that they have them in little lock boxes and stuff like that, but in the UK, I don't know the exact full, because it does change periodically, but I know that you have to have a safe that is anchored to either a wall that can't be gained access to and the floor. So that basically somebody can't rob the safe or whatever cabinet you've got that have got the weapons in. In American films and stuff like that, you see a lot of these, like, they look like little safe boxes, little petty cash boxes. Yeah, I don't see a problem with that as long as it is fixed, because if you can grab that box and walk away with it, that means that a child or somebody that's disturbed can easily walk away with that unit. So this is what I'm trying to focus on, is where these troubled teenagers, troubled youngsters that have got access to these weapons can't have access very easily. I think they should have to have maybe 2 lock systems, either a fingerprint registered to both, obviously, mum, dad, or adults, or whoever in the property, and potentially even a number combination, basically a 2-lock system. But we've got biometrics, we've got retina scans, we've got all Face ID, all sorts of technology now available to make this more safe. And I think that should be an automatic compulsory amendment to the Second Amendment in US law. So that's another thing. Now, so we've talked about the how many weapons, we've talked about the caliber sizes, we've talked about the amount of ammunition, and we've talked about sort of lock and safety, lock and key kind of thing. So then we've got the people that do it for sporting. So, you know, they do it at competition, or they just do it for leisure, which obviously is a lot more open in America than it is in the UK. If you want a fancy AR-15 or any other assault rifle or semi-machine gun, larger caliber pistols, whatever it is that you want to, you know, if you want to build a whole arsenal, that's fine. But you keep them at the range. You have your own safe, lock, cabinet, call it what you will, in a vault somewhere, mostly probably in a basement. I mean, America's gun shops and ranges are fraught. So for me, why can't you keep them at the range? If you happen to be moving from, let's say you were moving states or far away from the town that you're in, you have to apply for a license, the same as we have to do with a lot of things. I'm not saying that should be charged. You just have to apply for a license to, if you're transferring from, say, I don't know, Alabama to New York or California to Arkansas, whatever it might be. You apply for a license and you say, I'm moving house on the date. This is my old address. This is my new address. My guns are currently at ABC Firearms range, and I'm moving them to Tempest Firearms range, whatever. And you get a certificate. So if you were stopped in transit when you're doing that, then you've got proof to show why you're moving such large ammunition or firearms at that time. So for me, I don't see why you can't have the Second Amendment intact, just with a few little tweaks on the Constitution, just to make sure that basically those troubled teens, troubled children, haven't got access to these firearms readily. I think that would overnight immediately lower gun violence, especially mass murderings, overnight. And I really hope that Americans hear this and push for this within their governance, you know, and within politics in America. I'd love the governors of America to see this. Now, I'm a nobody, you know, if I can think of something very, you know, these are little issues that are easily fixed. And if I can think of it, surely those leading us have thought of it. So why is it not in play? What, you know, why does the president, every time that these massive mass murders happen at schools, you know, what about if it happens at a hospital? Or, you know, it's just tragic. They stand up and say how tragic it is, and the American people will get over it and we'll move on and we'll look to, but nothing ever changes. You know, this, just what I'm saying now, just 3-4 things could instantly change these crimes from happening in America, and these mass sad events happening that hit the world. They do hit the world everywhere. I'll see that there's been a mass school shooting, that 20 people have lost their lives, a couple of teachers defending the children, and it could have been avoided. So that's my views on that. This is going to be only a small podcast today. I know I'm a bit late doing one. It's because I've had some personal issues and some illness, but I am hoping to do another one, a smallish one, to make up for that loss. But I promise you they will continue to come. So the other thing to look at, which again, I don't know the actual specifics. I'm not here to tell you everything. I'm here to give you my views and perception for you to then go and research yourself or come up with your own conclusions, own understanding, own beliefs, whatever. I'm not here to tell you a definitive. I'm here to give you another angle and show that there is another angle where these issues can be avoided. So in the UK, you also have to have some sort of background check, which I know they do in America to a degree. I think that's a bit iffy between states as well. But these are the things that I believe should be central across the nation of America, not specific to individual states. I know that like in Texas, I think, again, I don't know if it's all of Texas or whatever, but they are allowed to actually carry a concealed firearm. I think, I don't know if you have to have a special license or whatever, or if you can do that in any state. I don't know. You've got concealed firearms and stuff like that. I don't know the exact laws behind it. That's not the point. The point is the fact that I think the general laws of the Second Amendment just need adjusting, tweaking, as an overall. So background checks. I know that in America, if you have ever been charged with a felony, I believe you are not automatically allowed to have a firearm. However, we all know that because of the vast amount of weapons available in America, in and out, imported, etc., that they're easier accessible, which is what I said earlier about the UK police force having them. It will just provide more weapons into the country. We all know that somebody's going to be able to get one if they really want one. And that's never going to change unless weapons don't exist. Simple. So that can't be alleviated. So, but that is a good stipulation to have, that if you are a felon, you're not allowed access to a weapon. Pretty good one. And it's a step in the right direction, however long that's been in place. But I'm pretty sure in the UK you have to have some sort of psyche evaluation to make sure that you are, from a doctor's point of view or medical point of view, that you're mentally competent to carry such arms. And again, having these, I know that you have to register your weapons in America and stuff like that, and this is all great and wonderful, but I don't know the specifics of how often this has to be done, but this should have to be regularly done. In the UK, anybody that does have these licenses have to have their, like the storage box I was talking about in the property, they have to have it checked every so many months, and it has to be done by either the fire department or the police themselves to ensure that it's up to standard and regulation. And I think that's the point. The regulations just need tightening, not the amendments right itself. I think it's just the regulations and the small print that just needs a little bit of tweaking, and it will alleviate a lot of the Americans' issues, and any other country that are more lenient on gun control laws. What was I saying then? Yeah, so the mental health. So I think that's, if they do it in America, then great. If they don't, I think that should be right up there as another implementation into the Second Amendment's constitutional rights. That you need to have a psych eval and basically make sure that you're competent to have this weapon. I think that's pretty much it. I think I've given enough information to show where my stance on gun control law is, both in the UK and America, and anywhere that's in between, that's either stricter or less stricter. The same premises. I think if you were to adopt the rights to be able to protect you and your family and your property, in your property, but with a lot stricter conditions, I think that should be the pure definition across the world. And I believe that the British police should have firearms. But I am very much thankful that tasers are now such a big thing, both in the UK and in America, where they are drawn to subdue a non-compliant felon, instead of bringing a firearm out with it potentially going off, or the person wielding the firearm making a mistake. I think a taser is a great first line of defence after the batons and pepper spray or CS spray, whatever it is, depending on the country. I mean, I've heard of some crazy things happening in the UK, going off subject a little bit, where there was, I think, a farmer he got robbed a few times, and he eventually had enough and got his shotgun, which was licensed, and ended up shooting the perpetrator as they were running away. And I'm pretty sure he got prosecuted for it. I can't remember if the person that got shot died, but I do know that the farmer was prosecuted for assault, murder, second degree, first degree, manslaughter, whatever it was. I know he got prosecuted, and for me, that's wrong. He's on his land. He's been broken into several times, probably by the same person that's got away with it once. So they've gone back repeatedly, and on this time he's been caught and they've got shot. And I think that's karma. But again, there's grey areas in between that. That I also heard of another one which didn't involve a firearm, but I mean, I can't even remember where I heard it. If I ever find, or if I find it before I've done the editing for this, I will put the article in the site, oh God, what's it called? The link for it, showing the article. But there was a man that was trying to rob just a normal domestic house, and they'd gone on the conservatory to try and break in through another, upstairs window or whatever. And it was a glass conservatory, and they fell through and severely hurt themselves. And they ended up being able to privately sue the homeowners under some infraction of human health and safety legislation. And that's just crazy. That they're trying to break into someone's house because you've got no other reason to be on that conservatory roof, and because they've fallen through and really cut themselves and hurt themselves, they've been able to privately sue the homeowners for having, I don't know, an irregulated or unregulated or whatever it was they sued them under. But he did it and won. Things like that are crazy. But I'm going to leave that there for today. And like I said, I'm going to try and do hopefully another one this week to make up for the couple of weeks that I haven't done them for. But I'd love to know what you guys think, whether you agree with me, disagree with me, whether you partly agree, partly disagree, what you do or think differently. And obviously I want to hear from the Americans. I want to hear if what I have said keeps your Second Amendment rights intact, but potentially could massively reduce mass murders, mass shootings from getting out of control in the United States. Also, the British public, if you agree with me, disagree with me on the police officers being armed with 9mm Glocks, if you agree with that or disagree with it, and why you agree or disagree, I would love to hear back. Because my perspectives and my opinions are not definitives. Everything I don't believe that everything I say is the word of God or higher power, or that I'm right on everything. That is not what any of this is about. It's about people just thinking for themselves freely, differently, outside of the narratives of what I believe is corrupted media, corrupted governments, and force feeding you, brainwashing you essentially in what they want you to believe, what they want you to follow, and the opinions that you have because of the social norms of what is being said to you. So let me just get back to this. So yeah, I would love to absolutely hear any of your comments. I'd love you to share this. Please follow me. It is free. I'm doing all I can to try and promote the book, yes, but not to get wealthy and famous. I'm literally going to be using, hopefully, a large portion of the funds to go towards causes that I believe in, which is fundamental human rights for anyone in poverty areas or humanitarian crises. I'm hoping at some point to be able to literally take a team of builders to the poverty-stricken countries and humanitarian crisis countries and put in water pipes. That's essential for life. It's water or fluid. Provide basic foods, even if it's grain, wheat. It's bland, but it's food. It will keep you alive. Shelter where appropriate. The basic vaccine if you're in a country that suffers badly of Ebola or HIV or malaria or any of the other diseases that are out there, COVID, whatever it is. You should be able to have access to these vaccines. They're readily available and everyone deserves the right to have access to them. Basic other health cares, dental, everyone should have basic education, especially for their country. And some sort of roof over their head of sorts, even if say it's a really hot country and it doesn't really ever get that cold. I mean, to them it would be cold, but, I'm going off subject, but just a shelter, to stop rain or something on them. These things are so easily adopted and they're just not being done. And that is my mission to do that. That is my ultimate mission. Everything I talk about on these podcasts is in my book, or will be in the second volume when I publish it. My book is now available normal size, 6x9 in paper and hardback in 2 parts, part 1, part 2. So some people are just more interested in the politics and the question side of things, and some people are more interested in just the conspiracies and the physical hypotheses and the global unity business plan. So that's now available on Amazon and hopefully will be worldwide on other sites within the next sort of week. It takes a lot of time to do. But yeah, love to hear from you. Please help me and support me in my mission. You don't have to buy a book. You don't have to donate £1 or £5 to either of my charitable links. Just a share, a follow, a like, a comment, anything like that to spread the word, get the word out there. And basically, as much as I hate to say this, get me known so I can hopefully start to implement the things that I'm saying and make the world a better place for us all, but mostly for the future. And that there's a world to, for the future to actually have. So, great one, guys. Take care.
Thanks for watching the One Opinion in 8 Billion podcast. The truth is rarely simple, but the questions are always worth asking. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and join the conversation, because the biggest questions in life deserve to be explored.